anybody who you talk to about like Hollywood and trying to like do the Hollywood thing or acting in general, not even, I mean, in New York as well, it is demoralizing for a lot of people. And one of the top things everybody says, you have to have a thick skin, you have to have a thick skin. The Hollywood, everybody's really nice, you know, to your face.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cosmic Chats. We have the amazing Joseph Schles. I can't talk. Joseph Schles.
It's very hard to say, but you got it. You got it.
Clearly I didn't got it. Clearly I didn't.
Well, eventually.
Well, he's making me laugh right now. He is a comedian and a performer in Los Angeles. And we're going to get down to some interesting information and observations he's had about dealing with the fakeness of Los Angeles. So let's get to the first question. How would you describe the taste of a banana to someone who's never eaten one?
Ooh, that is a tricky question, isn't it? I feel like I would like start with the texture and I'd be like, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of firm when you start, but then like instantly becomes mushy. It's a little sweet, a little nutty. It kind of tastes like morning by itself, like it's a morning time thing. And I wonder if I just think that because I associate eating that in the morning, and if somebody who's never tasted it wouldn't see it that way, but that's how it feels to me. It's kind
fruit.
of, yeah, it's a morning fruit. And it's sweet and a little mushy, and I love it.
Do you have it on cereal or in smoothies?
Absolutely. I actually had a banana this morning, which is funny because I haven't in a while. So it's funny that came up. So it's like fresh in my mind. I'm like, I just had one. Yeah, I definitely like it on cereal, but I don't do it much. It was like I went through a phase where I was like, bananas on Honey Nut Cheerios, delicious. But then I kind of stopped doing that. And definitely in a smoothie. It's like the base of every smoothie.
Does go through phases of eating certain foods?
Yeah, for sure. But there's some that are like evergreen, like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But there are other things where I'm like, it's a phase, and then I move on to something new.
So when did you have your first existential life crisis as a child?
Yeah. Isn't that a tough question? Because when was the first one, you know?
First one you remember?
Yeah. I feel like I'm kind of like, I have two dancing around in my head.
Okay, share both.
One was when I learned that people die and realizing that meant my parents were going to die in my lifetime, and I'd see that. I'm lucky enough that they're both still alive right now, but I just remember as a kid, like not being able to handle that. And just being like, oh my God.
Do you remember?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm so bad with time. I feel like I was probably in the ballpark of like 7 or 8, you know? But yeah, that was like a really hard one for me to kind of like, and then to think that I'm gonna die one day, just like grappling with death and like the finiteness of it, definitely like messed up my brain as a kid. And then the other thing that maybe I was a little bit older, probably like into like early teens or just before like maybe 10, 11-ish, grappling with the idea of eternity or like infinity, like thinking about space and being like, when did it start? And what was there before it started? And how will it end? And where's the end of it? And if you get to the end of space, what's after that? Oh my God. Like that really freaked me out a lot.
But they're still trying to figure that one out.
Well, you can't figure it out really. And I think that's the thing that is like so just like frustrating and mind bending. I don't know.
What I'm curious about is what caused that thought process to occur.
The space one?
Yes.
Well, you know, I was really interested in space as a kid. I really loved the solar system and planets and stars. I still like looking up at stars and thinking about that stuff. I used to want to be an astronaut, but I definitely was nowhere near smart enough to be an astronaut. Or maybe smart enough, but like definitely did not have the work ethic. So I don't know, I just thought about space a lot, and I used to like read a lot of books about it from like in my just school library, and look at like pictures of quasars and whatever else they were showing you, and just kind of like, I don't know, laying in bed thinking about it at night, being just kind of like, what is infinity. How could something be infinite? I can't process,
So really trying to funnel down something that blew your mind, the concept of infinity in itself, like just to be able to grasp what truly is that concept for you.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just this idea of like, I I really just think it is ungraspable, like just the thought of like, and space is always expanding, right? So if it's expanding, is there an end to it? And if there's an end to it, what's beyond that? And people are like, well, it's the thing, like you get to the end and you pop over to the other side. And I'm like, okay, but that still doesn't make sense to, like, I don't know. There's no way to make sense of it. I personally think, at least where we're at now as a society, there is like no way to actually grasp the vastness of infinity. I can't. I don't know if that was an answer to your question, but that's what I was thinking about.
Your answer is perfect. My question is, did you have the same thought process through your childhood when you couldn't grasp a concept? It seemed too ethereal, that you really were spending time trying to break it down and ingest it for you?
Yeah, I think so. I was definitely a very curious kid. I get curious about a lot of things. And kind of understanding, trying to understand how things work. There are some things that like I can't grasp, but just kind of I'm like, I accept it. Like, how does an image travel around the world to my phone through a satellite? Like
Right.
I can't really grasp that, but it is something that I'm like, but somebody figured it out. It's happening. Somebody understands it. There's a book somewhere. I just don't want to read it,
Which is interesting, because the overall concept of space and time, pretty much science is still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
But the one that someone can break down scientifically about how you get an image on your phone, that's the one that you surrender to. Go figure that out.
Yeah. Like somebody figured it out. But infinity, nobody's figured out. So I'm still sitting here with them. I'm like, somebody's got to figure this out.
So you're waiting for that person to step up to ease the mind.
I guess so. Yeah. I guess I'm like, I do not have the mental bandwidth to figure this out, but I know there's smart people out there.
Right.
And I can't wait for them to report back.
Would you say that as a child you were in your own world very much with your thoughts?
I want to say yes and no to that, because I do think that I would kind of like, my mind would kind of like go off into its own world. But I was also a very talkative and chatty kid. So it's like, yes, I was kind of in my own world, but I was also like ready to share my ideas with anybody who would listen. You know what I mean? I remember thinking when I was a kid, this is kind of related, I guess. I was like thinking about it and I was like, oh my gosh, I figured out space travel. Why don't we just put giant rockets on either side of the Earth and take the entire planet around the universe? And I was telling my dad, I was like, I have figured this out. We don't even need to build a spaceship. We got everything we need right here. We just take the whole planet. My dad was like,
what was his response?
Well, he was just kind of like, that can't happen. And I was like, why? And he was like, well, because we need the sun. So as soon as we move away from the sun, everything will die. And I was just like, you always ruin all of my ideas. I was so mad. But of course he's right.
Did you feel that memory of somebody ruining your ideas was recurring?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Stuff like that does happen a lot. I'll be like, how about this? And then people like shoot me down. I guess my first thought is always like, damn it, why? But then when I like take a minute to think about it, I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense.
So did you take this as, let's go the next idea? Or did you, and again, I'm going back to when you were younger, we initially remember this, or did you take this at, yes, I'm going to come up with the best solution?
Maybe this is indicative of a lot of my life, but I think I just took it as like, that was my idea and it can't work. So let's think about cartoons now. Or, you know what I mean? Kind of like, oh, well, I tried. I tried to solve space travel and I didn't get it on the first try. So let's move on.
What other areas did this happen in?
I mean, I see this reoccurring for me in a lot of ways. Like I'm sorry, I like stumble because it's like, oh, well, yeah, this and this and this and this and this. Even just so much as being in this industry, right? I'm a comedian trying to be in the like Hollywood industry, trying to be an actor, a comedian, whatever. And, that feels very nebulous to me. I'm like, I don't know how people make it in this town, So people are like, well, you need an agent. I'm like, well, how do you get an agent? They're like, yeah, you got to research it. I'm like, how do you research it? We're like, there's a book. And I'm like, a book of names? I'm supposed to research it from a book of names? So then like, this stuff just feels like a little nebulous, a little confusing to me. And then every once in a while, something will happen and I'll be like, oh, here's a meeting with an agent. And then I'll go there and it sucks or whatever. We don't vibe. It doesn't work out. And then I'm like, well, I tried it. I guess going back to watching Netflix for a couple more years before I try it again, So yeah, maybe I have like a defeated personality. I don't know.
If that happens, do you find it comes to you through other venues or other avenues? Sorry.
What do you mean?
Well, let's say the example of the agent, right? That you tried it, it didn't work out, but then you do end up connecting with someone, but in a different way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is what you mean, but I guess in a way, I'm a little bit of a waiter. I mean, I literally was a waiter for many years, but like, I'm kind of a like...
That would be with a T, if you pronounce the T.
Yeah. Waiter.
Waiter.
I like wait for things to kind of come to me, like opportunity wise. And I mean, I'll go out there and I try to do shows here and there, and I try to like put myself out there a little bit, but a lot of my personality is kind of like, well, I'll just wait for something to pop up. Or like I'll be like, hey, I'd love to do your show. And if I don't hear back, I'm like, well, I guess I'll never speak to this person.
You find that happens a lot?
I mean, yeah, sometimes. I've definitely reached out to some people and just not heard back and been like, oh, well, I guess that's a dead end. And I know that a lot of people have the personality trait where they're like, try again. Maybe I'll try this way. Maybe I'll try to contact them this way. And I'm more kind of like, well, I put a message in a bottle and threw it into the ocean. So if I don't hear back, it's not meant to be. Do
you hold it in if you send an email to someone and they don't get back to you and then you see them? Do you then follow up with them or you just let it be?
I am kind of if I see someone in person, I definitely do not shy away from stuff like that. I'll be like, hey, I emailed you. I don't know if you saw it. Like, I do that for sure. I don't really...
the response usually? Do people say, oh, I didn't get it, or...
Yeah, it's like the gamut. It's kind of like, oh, really? I didn't see it. Or some people will be like, oh my God, I saw that. I was going to write you back. And then something happened. Or blah, blah, blah. Like the Hollywood. Everybody's really nice, to your face. But yeah, the response.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because that's kind of interesting. Do you get a sense of when someone is completely and utterly just giving you... and you just carry on because it's not worth it? Or do you call people on it?
I think it depends on the situation, if I'm being honest, or my relationship with a person. If I don't know someone well and I can tell they're just doing the nice kind of like, oh yeah, we'll definitely hang out. I do feel like I can vibe that out, and I'll just be like, oh, we're never going to hang out, If it is, if it's somebody that I know well or feel like I have a fun rapport with, I will point that stuff out. And I'll be like, we're not going to hang out, are we? And that catches people off guard. And they're like, oh, no, I mean, I'd really like to. And I'm like, we're not going to see each other, Has
that ever happened with a celebrity?
Not really with the celebrity. Like, we're going to hang out and then we don't. Oh, well, actually, yeah. I was, this is silly, but I was serving in a restaurant. I was a server at this like high profile restaurant in West Hollywood. And I was waiting on Robbie Turner, who's an English singer. Oh, not Robbie Turner. I'm sorry. Robbie Williams. Yeah. Robbie Turner is a drag queen who is controversial, but Robbie Williams, the English singer.
At the moment, everybody put your comments in the chat are based on that Freudian slip.
Yeah. Well, I watch a lot of drag queen stuff and listen to a lot of drag queen podcasts. And that drag queen's name has come up a lot recently. So I think it was, anyway, I'm talking about Robbie Williams, the singer. I waited on him. He was lovely, so nice, very present, and he was engaging me in conversation, which was super nice. And some restaurant goers like to do that. They like to talk to their waiter for whatever reason.
And was he on his own or with someone?
He was with someone. I don't know if it was his girlfriend or wife. He was with a woman and they seemed to be together. And she was also completely lovely. I was like really delighted to have been waiting on them. And he's talking to me, which, doesn't often happen, especially with celebrities. And he's asking me what I do. And I was like, oh, I'm a comedian. And he was like, oh, cool. Is there anything I would have seen you on or anywhere I can see your stuff? And I was like, I mean, I guess. And he's like, yeah, send it to me. Or here, write down your social media info. So I wrote down my at Joseph Schles. I was like, there you go. And I knew as I was like, I'm never going to hear from you, but I thought it was nice of him to have entertained it. I knew it wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to follow up. But he was very nice and I was not upset about it. But yeah, so that is the one time I can remember offhand where something like that has happened with a celebrity.
And would you say, based on whether it's a celebrity or not, your intuition has been 80% right, 90% right?
About whether or not somebody is kind of just doing the
Hollywood
thing?
When your gut is telling you.
I mean, I want to say I'm usually 90% right, There's just, I don't know. I do think that I'm pretty good at picking up on vibes. I'm not afraid to make a situation uncomfortable. But also a lot of times I don't think it's worth it. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'm like, oh, I know you're lying and it's not worth it for me to bring this up and we can just have this pleasant exchange and then I'll never see you again. Even though you're saying, oh yeah, I'll come to your thing. I'm going to come to your show. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm like, it's not going to happen, but I appreciate, the niceties. And then there are times where I'm like, I think this is really going to happen. And then people do follow through, it's not always bad. But I do feel usually my intuition's pretty accurate.
Is very much the culture of Los Angeles. Excuse me.
I do think so in a lot of ways. I do think so. And I don't even know that it's always malintention. I think people get busy. Everybody's trying to climb a ladder, and it's in conversation, they might be this feeling of oh, you might be a rung on my ladder. And then as soon as the conversation's over, maybe they're kind of maybe not. Oh, here's another rung. So it's just I don't know if that analogy is making sense, but I don't know what I'm saying. I lost my train of thought.
You do know what you're saying. You do know what you're saying.
Yeah.
How do you cope with that? Because could that not be very demoralizing?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And I think anybody who you talk to about Hollywood and trying to do the Hollywood thing or acting in general, not even, I mean, in New York as well, it is demoralizing for a lot of people. And one of the top things everybody says, you have to have a thick skin. And I don't necessarily have the thickest of skins. I do feel like I'm a little bit sensitive, which is probably a big reason that I feel it's taken me so long to get any traction, But yeah, I do think that is kind of part of it. I think you do have to be able to just feel confident enough in yourself to not let everybody else's kind of yeah, we love you. Oh my God, absolutely. Something's going to happen. And then nothing happens and then let that defeat you, because that is going to just keep happening. And that is part of it.
What do you do to help center yourself from this up and down roller coaster?
Well, I have a good group of friends and I love to vent. And I also, and I like listening to people vent too, So a lot of my friends have similar experiences and we can talk about it and kind of share our experiences and frustrations. And that helps me feel better because it's kind of okay, I'm definitely not alone. Everybody struggles with this kind of stuff. And, also comedy. I make jokes about it, make light about it. And if I can make even just friends laugh about a situation, then it kind of heals me a little.
So with laughter, what some people might not know who are tuning in, the vibration of the cells, when the body laughs, actually helps release stress. And it also, if there's something that's really funny, there's a deep inhalation from, that big belly laugh, right? That whenever we're stressed, naturally we'll take a sigh, sort of, right? That's a big inhalation and exhalation. And so laughter in itself helps relieve the stress. And so when you say comedy helps, it does. And it's also part of why where Meditation Inc. has done comedy show fundraisers. And there were some, of course, in lockdown through Zoom, because people needed to breathe, right? And also laugh, right? And the other element is, people get stressed out when they're trying to help for a good cause. And, unfortunately, the consciousness is there will always be some suffering. And we can have a good time if we come together in service to help other people, right?
Yeah.
And the meditation, for those of you who don't know what it's about, we have a free ebook called Vedic Meditation Stories. If you have unlimited Prime, I think it is, on Amazon, the link will be down below, or there should be something pop up in the box for you. And you can read stories from people who learnt the practice. They're true stories. It's the only publication currently, as this is recorded, with their true stories. It's only about a page per person, and your mouth will drop to the floor because they are people who you never expect to meditate. And this is to help dispel this idea of what we think we should be, as a meditator or a person, maybe what we should be in order to be a successful performer, or what is success, period. Like, what is that? And where does that come from in our ideology? And how are we preventing ourselves from being fully who we are because we're not successful unless we've achieved, I don't know, maybe a piece of property somewhere, I don't know, or maybe someone who's on our arm who other people will validate, and that makes us feel good. Because vanity is about how we feel we want other people to perceive us. That's what it really is. It's how we feel we want them to perceive us.
That's so true.
And that then helps, with what we teach, it helps get the nervous system go from the fight or flight to the relaxation state. And when that happens slowly over time, we then stop living from the outside world's up and down meaning so much. And if you've been performing like you have long enough, it's crowd after crowd after crowd after crowd. Sooner or later, it sort of washes over, right? As it were, because the outside validation, right, which is what was very much stuck on nowadays, doesn't become the be all and end all of our existence, right? We have to go inward. And so the practice that we want to go into the communities of underrepresented groups in the wellness world is actually help shift consciousness. And that pretty much is not a temporary positive attitude or a temporary change of mind or, a mindset. But when we get that stress removed, it actually changes how we perceive the world. And we're able to navigate more fluidly without the ups and downs, and pretty much know, okay, they were being completely fake, but that's all right. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah, what are you going to do?
Now, do you come from a small hometown?
Well, not really. I grew up in Moreno Valley, California, which is in Riverside County. I don't know the number of people there, but it's a lot. Like my high school in Moreno Valley, my high school was like one of, I want to say, 5 or 6 high schools in the city. And my graduating class was something like 700 people. My freshman class, I think, was 1,300 people. So, it's not a small city, but it's not as well known. It's definitely more residential.
How was there the stereotypical high school fakeness?
No, not where I'm from. I mean, maybe in some ways, but I didn't feel that necessarily in my high school. My high school had a reputation for being rough. I went to Moreno Valley High School. But it also had a really good arts program, actually, that I got involved in. But I think because of the size of it, you could really kind of like disappear into just being with your people, So I found my theater kids, my dance kids. And definitely felt like my little community within the big school. Like the gay thing was surprisingly not that tough for me, because there was a lot of other much louder gay people in my school, because it was like a huge diverse school, like all kinds of people, which I think is great. But
you were able to find your people because it was so many people were there,
right.
rather than a smaller community where it would have been harder for you to be accepted.
I think so. I feel like maybe in a smaller school, it's kind of like easier for popular kids to like be deemed the like dominating opinions. And so it might be like harder for, if you don't connect with them, you have less people to kind of like, or more people to make you feel alienated. But I think with the side, like a big school like that, a lot of people feel alienated at all. Sure, there was like popular kids and stuff like that, but it didn't really feel like a TV high school experience to me. Like I said, we were lucky to have a good arts program, and I was into arts and found a lot of other friends who also enjoyed that. So it definitely felt safe, and like was able to come out in high school to friends and feel not like too alienated about that and stuff.
So if
that
you
was
were
lucky.
to go back and give yourself advice through dealing with the fake element of a place like Los Angeles, what would you say to your younger self that might help you navigate through it more easily?
That's a good question. That's to my younger self. What do I need to say to my current self? But I do.
Might be the same advice.
Yeah. The joke side of me wants to be like, eat less carbs. But actually, what would I say? I would just be like, people are just going to be fake, and some people are going to be not great. And a lot of people are great and will be real, and just stick to those people and stop caring so much about trying to like be the person that you think the fake people want you to be, because they're not going to like you no matter what.
Great advice for everyone in all areas of life.
Yeah, and if you're just yourself, people will like you,
You'll find your tribe, your soul tribe. So with that, if you've enjoyed our chat, I hope you will be a member of our soul tribe and subscribe, put some comments down. And we want to thank you so much, Joseph, for joining us here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome on our Cosmic Chats.